Hello, everyone, and welcome to Circuit Stream's Demo Day, 6th edition. You will be seeing the projects of the interaction design and prototyping for XR students. And today we will also have a special guest, Aletha Singleton. If you're there, if you can see me, if you can hear me, definitely let me know. Otherwise, I'm speaking to a room of of no responses. So it's definitely a good sound and video check for me. One thing that we always say is it's a great idea for you to let us know where you're tuning in from and how you found out about the event. So that's always a great thing to hear. All right, so sorry about that. I'm just going to move the chat over here and just see if anybody is tuning in. Cool. All right. Oh, great. So we have Jeff. Thanks, Jeff, for confirming. Great to see you there. If anybody else is there as well, just introduce yourself as we get things started. All right. So what we can do is let's kick things off and slowly we'll let people trickle in. I'm Luciana Fortes, and I'll be your host for the day. And I'm super excited to be showing the projects that we have from our 5 students. All right, so what can we expect for today? So I'm going to take about 15 minutes to do a brief introduction, talk to you about who I am, who our special guest is, and who Circuit Stream is. And then we're going to jump straight into the student projects. So each of the student projects will show their video. They have a couple of slides talking about their process and why they took this course and kind of everything that they worked through. And then you'll have a chance to ask them some questions, and then we'll get expert feedback from Aletha Singleton. Awesome. I see Steph has tuned in as well. Hello, Steph. Great to see you there. I think we were super punctual today, so people are probably just starting to trickle in. All right, so, and then at the end, what we're going to do is we're going to have a prize draw, and we'll do a quick wrap up. So after today's event, we are going to be hosting a post-show discussion in VR. So I've set up a space in AltSpace VR, and I'll be sharing all of the information for you to tune into that event. You can join with a headset or without one, so you have both options. And it's just a great opportunity to talk to the student presenters, connect with others, and do a little bit of networking as well. So I do hope to see you there. Okie dokie. So let's get things going. So who am I? As I mentioned, I'm Luciana Fortes, but you can call me Lucy. I'm the Student Experience Coordinator at Circuit Stream. So I'm responsible for making sure that students are supported and throughout their educational journey with us and really just reach their educational goals. I'm also known as the fun guru, great experience specialist, so you can really take your pick. I've worked in education for over 7 years in university prep as well as student experience. And a fun fact about me is that both of my degrees are in dance. And in 2016, I danced in the opening ceremony of the Rio 2016 Paralympic Games. So there you go. And now a little bit about our special guest, our design expert, Aletha Singleton. We're super excited to have her here with us. She's an immersive tech UX designer with check this out, 20 years of UX design experience. Okay, it doesn't get much better than that. She's also an XR design instructor at Circuit Stream. She's the creator of the UX for XR toolkit at pinsizedrobotninja.com. And fun fact about Aletha is that she designs and builds furniture as a hobby. So that's one of the things you can also ask her if you come to the post-show discussion in XR. All right, so we have a couple other people tuning in as well. Hello, David. Great to see you as always, as well as Indica. So Indica was actually one of the instructors that helped out some of our students here today. So it's great to have him here. David, with a 3D printer, eh? What are you talking about, David? Tell me more. All right. All right, so let's keep things going. So a little bit about us here at CircuitStream. So we were founded in 2015 when we noticed that there was an educational gap in the XR world in terms of providing training to the next set of professionals, enthusiasts, and experts. So then we really focused on the educational side of things. And since then, we're really proud to say that we've trained over 40,000 learners, which is always an exciting number for me to say. Oh, David, though she builds furniture with a 3D printer as well. Oh, that's a good question. Let's definitely ask Aletha that later on, for sure. So CircuitStream is also a Unity certified training and channel partner. So channel partners are approved based on their expertise and quality to providing the best level of education possible. Our team is made up of we're a global team of industry experts who are passionate about XR education. So just as our students, we have experts, team members from all around the world with different backgrounds and experiences, but with one goal in common, and that's to train the next set of XR professionals. So that's really at the core of what we do. This is just a snapshot of some of the companies and the students we've had the pleasure to train. We have some pretty big names there, such as Facebook, YouTube, Nike, and they all come from different fields as well, which I always like to see because it really impresses me, the kind of diversity in XR and what you can do. All right, so let's dive into the course a little bit more that these students did, kind of what they learned, what they went through, and then how that reflects on the projects that they'll be bringing today. So the course that they did was our live online course entitled Interaction Design and Prototyping for XR. This is a 10-week course with over 80 hours of instruction. And it's similar to our XR Dev course, except there's no coding. So these students really focus on the design aspects of XR, as the name suggests, of course. So they learn how to design experiences for AR and VR. They learn the techniques to create and test XR prototypes. They're creating immersive storytelling as well as visual effects in XR. And one of the things that I'd like you to notice is their choices with regards to the interaction, the interface, and overall user experiences. So in terms of not doing the coding part, of course, that can limit the extent to what they can do. That's really not the focus of this course. It's really understanding what choices they made in terms of the design aspects. So they'll be talking a little bit about that pertaining specifically to each of their projects, but this is just to give you some context of what they went through. All right. David, you have lots of questions. That's awesome. Is that Seattle or Vancouver out there? That's true. Hershey's milk chocolate. Okay, you're making comments to the previous slides. I get it. We'll keep on coming. All right, so without further ado, let's get to the main part of the show, and let's start us off with the student projects. First, we have our lovely Andy Grobengieser. I think I said that right, with Marimba, a fully playable 5-octave marimba in a virtual concert hall. He's giving me the thumbs up, so that's good news for me. Let me invite Andy up on stage. Hey, Andy. I passed then. I passed the test.
You passed the pronunciation test. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can see you
Great.
And hear you. Perfect. Do you want to quickly introduce yourself and then we'll start on with your video?
Yes, sure. I can do this quickly. I'm Andy Grobengieser, and I live in New York City, where I'm a music professional in several aspects of music industry, both music education and music production in my studio, and I work on Broadway as well as a keyboardist and conductor, and just do a lot of things in music. So, and yes, I can play Beethoven, David.
Oh, nice. You should all check out, Andy has in YouTube VR, you have a great video, right, of one of your experiences on Broadway?
Oh, yeah. I need to put that on my website. Maybe I should do that. The
Yeah,
VR. Yeah,
yeah.
it's got like 1.5 million views or something. A Disney
Oh,
VR video.
nice.
It's cool. It's cool.
Nice. And later share it in the
Yeah.
comment. I'm sure everybody will want to see.
But my video was pretty self-explanatory about the project, so I would say let's just go ahead and roll it.
Awesome. Give me 1 second here, and let's get things started.
Music and virtual reality are a perfect match. Both are immersive, interactive experiences. But looking at the landscape of music-focused VR apps, most tend to fall into two popular categories: hyperkinetic rhythm or fitness apps like Beat Saber, or experimental instruments meant for musical looping and sound creation. I've been wondering, is there a place for realistic, convincing, playable musical instruments in VR? And what can I do with these two controllers? Until we have very nimble and accurate finger tracking gloves for consumers, a convincing virtual piano is still a little ways off. Same goes for emulating wind instruments through some sort of breath controller. The obvious interaction is drumsticks, but, and no offense to my drummer friends, I want to play pitches and notes, and there are already some good drumming apps out there. The obvious answer: presenting Marimba, a 2-mallet, 5-octave, realistic marimba in a beautiful concert hall setting. Let's walk up to Marimba, grab our mallets, and start playing. Adding to the realism are the gorgeous 3D marimba and concert hall assets I found online. The grand piano is currently only a prop, but perhaps it'll be playable in the future. I'll be crediting the creators of these great assets in just a moment. Time for me to put the mallets down, and let's give it a try with a real percussionist. This is Dave. He's a real marimba player. This is the first time Dave's ever had a VR headset on in his life, but we're gonna strap it on and give it a try anyway.
That's cool that the actual mallet bends. You know what I mean? Not bends, but it stays. It's cool. So the stick goes like this, like it should. Like... This is unbelievable, Andy. I'm blown away by this.
I mean, are you having fun at all? Okay.
I mean, it's unbelievable. I'm freaking.
Let's look again at this beautiful marimba model and its gorgeous bars and resonators. And the experience wouldn't be as immersive without that realistic concert hall setting. The design of the mallets is mine, as is the lighting plot of the auditorium and stage. Is that sheet music on the piano? No, it's a listing of the creators of these beautiful assets. So what's next for Marimba? First off, mallet velocity tracking for dynamics and extra realism. Here's some footage of me testing those scripts. Also, the ability to change the timbre of the marimba by using harder or softer mallet materials. And beyond that, haptic feedback in the hand controllers to add realism upon each note strike. Real-time shadows, hand animations, adjusting the amount of reverberation in the concert hall, being able to import sheet music PDFs and display them visually on a music stand, and a mechanism for grabbing a second mallet with the same controller, allowing 4 mallets total, and controlling the spread via the thumbstick. So that's Marimba. Hope you enjoyed the tour.
Yes, that's Marimba.
I love it. I love it. A round of applause of snaps to Andy. That's amazing. And it just it seems so realistic, and also just having your friend play, like, it's really
Yeah,
cool.
he had a bit of a learning curve. He had never had a headset on in his life, and so it took a minute to. We did a couple of the Quest sort of training exercises to get him used to like how that all feels. And he's like, I am not a video gamer. I don't know how to do this. But he had it on for maybe 15 minutes, and he got more and more comfortable. And yeah, it was really great beta testing, or testing for me to see how a
Uh-huh.
user would pick this up, like a real musician would pick this up, because I've had plenty of practice as I tested it out.
Right.
But it was he had a blast. So
Yeah, it looked like he picked it up relatively pretty quickly, right? Because
yeah,
he was playing really well after a little while.
yeah. So
Brilliant.
that was a blast to develop. And then I've got just a few slides to sort of like take you through my process. I think I explained sort of what my goals were in designing it and trying to have as realistic an experience as possible, because there are a lot of very fantastical apps in VR, and that's what VR is great for. But I really couldn't find any that were designed to be realistic and sort of serve perhaps like a music education purpose, or a marimba is many thousands of like tens of thousands of dollars to have one of these giant things, and
Whoa.
to have access to that and practice your material or whatever in your headset would be remarkable, and to be able to extend that paradigm out to other instruments in the future that can be controlled with the controllers. So those were my goals, and it's obviously very early work in progress, but I had challenges, just figuring out how those colliders should work. Basically, the colliders of the stick and the bar. If you just want to go to the next slide, mapping those out onto these bars and having to add audio samples to every single one of those discretely. I had to sort of really play with the diameter of the sphere and the width of the collider on the bar. And then I had to put these little invisible barriers up behind, because the marimba was sliding off to the next note and striking too many. So it was a lot of testing. So I had to, that's what those gray things you see are kind of like prevent it from sliding to the next bar. That was certainly a challenge to sort of understand how all that works. And since I wasn't taking any of the coding, I hadn't taken the develop or the XR Dev course. I took the design course, so I was using visual scripting to make all these interactions work. And Indica was an amazing instructor to sort of guide me through that process. And many thanks to Indica.
Shout out to Indica.
I believe Indica is in the chat. So in the next slide, I had a lot of problems with lighting. These, again, the concert hall and the marimba itself are assets that I found externally, and those are credited in the project because the sheet music on the piano was the name of was listed the names of those creators. But anyway, there were getting the lighting to the UVs that were on those models. There were some problems with overlaps, and so I had a lot of problems getting the baked lighting to look good. But I finally sort of came up with a solution. So that was a challenge, and then just want to so the challenge that I'm working on right now is getting velocity working, because that's where the realism is going to come into play. Right now, when you play it, every note sounds equally loud, whether you go boom or whether you just go very lightly. So I'm testing, and Indica's working with me, even beyond the scope of the course, to get these scripts going. I had a little bit of footage in the video of me testing a new script we're working on that tracks the velocity of that controller and gives you a louder, more punctual, and just louder sound, and that will let you vary the timbre and the volume from soft to really loud. So that's a challenge right now, and I'll just keep working on it. If you just want to go to the next slide, this is a script that I'm working on to get those velocities working. It's tricky for someone who hasn't done the coding part of it, other than the C# course that I took. But, next slide. Right. I contacted her. I thought I had one other in there, but I realized I didn't. Just the next steps, I would like to. They were in the video, but I'd like to add a lot of features to this. Marimba players want to play with 4 mallets. That's what they really. I mean, the 2 mallet thing is pretty simple. That's like what you begin with when you start playing. But I want to add a way to grab a second mallet with each hand, and then adjust the sort of width of those with controllers, and then you could really play some gorgeous stuff. And then I just want to apply everything I've learned from this to seeing if I can recreate other instruments in VR.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing you said about the price of the instrument, I can imagine that's like such a big step to get into this, to start working with this instrument. So having this app would really make it a lot more accessible, right? And that's good for everybody.
Right. Happy to take any questions about it.
Brilliant. Yes. So we'll take about 1 to 2 questions from the audience, and then we'll invite Aletha for her expert feedback. So let me just.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Let's see. Well, I'm scanning the questions too, but yeah, David, it was just great to have a real player there to help me test it. David asked if I can switch back from and forth between visual scripting and C#. That's what Indica and I are working on, because right now I have 2 versions of the project. One that has all the scripts for the velocity, and one that's just visual scripting. So I need to merge those and be able to toggle between them as I continue developing the project. And yeah.
Nice. And then I'll just post Indica's comment. Yeah, so we were able to grab the velocity. The challenge is to map these velocities and play the correct sound with the intensity. Right.
Yes, it's a work in progress. So, it was great through the course to be able to kind of like conceptualize the design and how the sounds would work. I did all the sound mapping on my own because I have a music studio here at my place. Nice. And I was able to bring those marimba samples in and map those out. But in terms of getting the interactions, that's where what I learned in the course really helped me. And I couldn't have done any of this without Indica sort of guiding me through it. So I've just had a blast.
Awesome. All right, so let's get Aletha up on stage to give her feedback. Welcome, Aletha. Thank you so much again for participating and giving your input. We're really excited to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks again for inviting me.
Hi, Aletha.
Your audio is a bit.
Am I?
That's better.
Okay.
It was cutting up a bit.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Nice to meet you, Andy.
Hi.
I'm impressed with how polished this is so far. You've done quite a bit of work on it, and I love that you tested it with actual musicians. That's the UX professional in me loves that, and I would say keep doing that and try to find more of a range of people. So even people that don't have experience playing, or people that are beginner to that, get a good variety of people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then also said how you had to go through the Oculus experience to onboarding to teach them. So consider a way of including some kind of onboarding inside the app in the future.
Right.
Yeah. And
in the UI to sort of explain that, grab a controller, sort of guiding you through moving your controller to pick up the sticks.
Yeah. And also, so do they hold down the grip as they're playing? Do they continue to hold it down?
They do. They hold down the grip, the mid hand grip, and then releasing that drops the mallet. I want to leave the trigger open for a future interaction to pick up a second mallet per hand. Okay. So that's the nice thing about having 2 grips, both a grip and a trigger per hand.
Yeah, and continue testing that. But one thing to consider is that if they're newer players, they tend to white knuckle controllers a lot more if they're not used to gaming.
Yeah.
Did you notice that?
Yes, my friend who is not a gamer and not a VR, he was really, I was like, just relax. These are very comfortable things. And But I have other friends who are not trained music. I do have one other family member who tried this out, who was not a player, a musician at all, but they're a gamer, and they were almost as good as he was because they were approaching it with a relaxed gaming
Yeah.
grip.
Yeah. So consider it's like if it's going to be a long-term grip, consider figuring out ways to let them not have to hold down the buttons once
Oh,
they've
right,
grabbed
lock
them.
it, sort of a lock it
Yeah.
into the socket. Hmm.
Yeah. Figure out a way of doing that. And you've seen that. And Beat Saber, you had that experience up there as one of your examples.
Yeah.
And then, of course, test that. And you mentioned teaching in the future, right? Or music education.
Yeah, using it in a music education type scenario.
Yeah, that's excellent, especially since students can't afford that tens of thousands of dollars of
Right,
equipment. There is an app that you might want to check out. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Virtuos VR Piano. It's in the Oculus App Lab.
Oh, okay.
It's VRTUOS. And that one teaches piano in VR, and
I see.
will also map it to a real piano. But that's not what I'm telling you to take away from it. Is you can import music MIDIs, and it'll overlay the highlight in tempo and let you learn the piano that way. So
Fantastic.
you might get
Yeah.
some inspiration from it if you check it
Yeah.
out.
I wonder if it does individual finger tracking because
It's using the Quest, so finger
Good.
tracking on the Quest.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That was all I can think of. Yeah, but yeah, just keep testing. I love that you're testing.
Always be testing.
Always testing.
That's the quote
Yes.
for the moment. Always be testing. Awesome. Thank you, Aletha. Thank you so much, Andy. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Yeah, good job.
Great. So now we have Lena Huang, Planoscape. VR Planogram, a virtual simulation of a retail store used for designing interior spaces and planning product placement. So let's get Lena here up on the stage. Welcome, Lena. It's great to have you with us.
Hi. Sorry, someone is just outside my door right now. My dog was barking a bit, so I'm sorry.
All good. No.
Out of my control. But yeah, hi everyone. My name is Lena Huang, and I'm an interaction design student based in Toronto, Canada. I used to study architecture before studying interaction design, and then I did 2D design, and now I'm back to doing 3D design. So I love to do 3D modeling, but I want to do a lot more than just modeling. I want to make my own environment and add interactions to it so I could actually have like the full VR experience. So in the future, I would like to become an XR designer. And I hope to work on a lot more projects this summer. Next summer. I did a few projects this summer with some companies in South Korea. But this project that I'm going to introduce to you today is what I worked on with Indica, and it's called Planoscape. So it is a virtual simulation of a retail store. I made it so that it's more for like practical use in the industry. So if we could just move on to the slides.
And I will just say that you're an XR designer in progress, so it's already happening.
Oh, thank you. So my main objective was to create a VR planogram that aims to solve real life retail design techniques. In reality, retail design takes a very long time. So it all starts with like sketching, concept ideation. They have to actually draw out what they have. They need to take props and actually visualize what the actual space would look like. And this actually happens in like the headquarters of every clothing brand, etc. And after all this, they still have to get an okay from the higher ups. And so this is a very long process. So I thought of a way to kind of like condense all this into just a couple of steps. So what Planoscape will do is it will have the props here for you, and you just have to rearrange them. So you get to visualize, but you also can basically, I guess, like see what your idea is in real time. So you don't have to go through sketching, step 1, step 2, step 3.
Mhm.
And you can show your idea right away to the person that you want to show it to. Okay, next slide, please. The challenges that I had was a lot with the physics of Unity. So as I've stated before, I'm a 3D modeler. In 3D modeling, you don't really have to care about the hierarchy or like the parenting,
Mhm.
etc. But all of this really takes effect in Unity. If the parenting is weird, like the scale of the parent is weird and the child, it kind of like flies away. That was my experience that I had. So it took me a while to figure out what really was the problem. And Indica helped me figure this out. He told me that even these small little details actually really have effect on the physics of Unity. Secondly, again, with Unity, I had problems with colliders and rigid bodies. Often because I have so many props in my scene, the colliders would clash into each other and they would kind of like fly away from each other. So those were the main challenges. And the next slide, please. However, for my achievements, so in order to have a faster workflow for my users, I modified the default input actions for XR so that the user is not limited to only using one hand to teleport and one hand to grab. The user can use both hands to teleport, grab, and also grab from a distance. Additionally, the user can also easily teleport from the store to the garage and send objects back and forth. So they don't have to physically go to one space to the other. They can send their props just back and forth into the box that I'll show you in my demo later.
Nice.
Please. Moving forward, my project is at a stage where it still needs a lot of tweaking, such as setting up collision layers and baking lights. I would like to add maybe more layouts of other stores that resemble more corporate clothing stores and add more complex yet essential functions such as undo redo command system and an inventory of an array of objects that the user can choose from. Next,
Brilliant.
please. And I would just like to say special thanks to Indica and Tyrell for being amazing mentors, and also to Circuit Stream as well.
Awesome. Shout out to Indica again. And Indica said you're already an XR designer.
Thank you. That means a lot to me.
So there you go. I don't know what I was saying. You should trust Indica. He's the expert. And Lena, did you do the assets yourself as well?
Oh, so I modeled some of the assets. So I modeled the store and the garage, and then for the clothes, there's just and like the mannequin, those were a lot. So I will have to credit the creators later into my actual portfolio. But half of them I modeled and half of them I imported from a platform.
That's incredible. That's brilliant. All right, so let's go to your video.
So my video, before we get started, it's more of a real experience kind of feel. So yeah.
All right, and let's go.
So this is the box that I was talking about earlier. It's actually props to the other department. I think the video is a little laggy.
Sorry, I was muted. I'm going to bring it back. I think it just needed to load a bit, and
Mhm.
then hopefully it'll be better. Let's just try it one more time.
So when this happened, I actually hit my keyboard, but I was able to grab the item directly. So I'll just explain what's going on. So that wooden platform that's floating in air is actually a teleport anchor as well. So when the user has trouble or height, they can actually teleport to this platform, and then they'll be able to grab items that are more, the higher range. And you may be wondering, for this environment, when we have to visualize what the actual real environment looks like, we don't need the cardboard box, we don't need the floating steps. I made it so that the steps and the cardboard box can both be turned on and off. So like in terms of visibility, both in the actual store and the storage space. And I decided to use a world space canvas instead of like the actual static canvas, because so then the user can get the maximum visibility when using this VR project that I made. Thank you.
Nice, amazing. Congrats, Lena. Sorry about a bit of the lag there. I'm not sure in the middle if it froze for anybody, but hopefully it came back smoothly. So round of snaps, round of applause. Let's go to audience questions. So we have one from David. Oh, sorry, everyone. Just a quick second. Things are freezing up on my end. But David is asking, how was the movement done?
Which movement are you talking about? Can you explain?
Like the user movement, maybe?
Or are you talking about the animations for the floating platform? So for the floating platform, I just used the animator in Unity. And for the UI canvas, I also used the animator as well, but we needed to do a little bit of coding for the UI because it wouldn't loop automatically. So we had a little bit of trouble. I think it's the animator itself in Unity that's the problem. So that's why we had to use some C# scripting for that. And if you're talking about movement in terms of teleportation, how does the user move around? The user moves around just by teleportation.
Okay.
Sorry,
there you go.
I know it's hard to tell because the video was lagging, but the user just has to use the joystick to move around.
Okay, so there you go. And then I think you already explained this, but maybe you can explain it again. So what is a purple fountain of particles?
I add a little bit of VFX to the platform just so that in terms of UX design, when maybe like a user doesn't have like, I don't know, very good eyesight, or sometimes like it can blend in with the other objects in the scene, they can tell that, okay, so this is actually for function. And same as the cardboard box as well. I didn't want it to blend into the scene. I wanted to stand out from everything else.
That's a great note. Awesome. All right, so let's get Aletha here.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Nice to meet you. But good
Nice
job
to meet
that you've
you.
done.
Thank you.
And actually, off the topic, but what they were talking about earlier is you already have experience in modeling and in environmental design, so you've got a foot in the door already. So you're in a good spot.
Thank you.
That there is a ton. You are right. There's a ton of detail to pay attention to
Yes.
and think about when you're creating these experiences, and that's why it's always awesome when you can actually work with a team of people instead of doing everything by yourself. But I liked the box. I didn't think it's trash. It's storage, or it's moving it somehow, right?
Mhm.
The items that you put in the box. I liked that interaction. It reminded me a little bit of this game called Wrench, but that was actually recycling, not storage. And they had mentioned teleportation, and it looks like you're using the dash variation of teleportation. Is that right?
Dash variation. Sorry, I'm not familiar with that terminology.
The dash variation is where you teleport, but you can still see the world around you as you're moving. And so you're just rushing to the next location.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's called the dash variation.
Okay,
And then
thank
there's the blink variation, which is where the environment, it's like you're blinking. So the environment goes away and then you show up in a new place. That one has much less of a risk of motion sickness than the dash variation. So I would recommend trying to use that variation, because there are people who are very sensitive to motion who could get sick with that dash. And then also consider using a Bezier so people can target where they're going, because I don't remember seeing that.
I did use it. I think it's because the video was lagging. But
Okay.
you are right. For right now, the actual teleportation. Sorry if my terminology is wrong. The ray is actually straight right now, but I think, like you said, using like a Bezier, ray
With the circle target.
Easier for the user to see.
Yeah. And then how are people learning to interact with it?
So as of now, I don't really have a tutorial or like anything like that to have set up for the first time users, but I think that is also a consideration. And when they first open the project, maybe like having like a small demo or like even a little bit of text would help them. But I think that is definitely something that I have to consider.
Yeah, most teams that I've worked with will figure out the interactions first, of course, and then they'll do the tutorial once they've polished everything and figured out how to do it. And then you go in and add the best onboarding experiences I've seen are where you actually let them practice. So that's something to consider. And then I like the buttons that are placed in space on the wall. Instead of having to carry around a UI with you or pull up one, it's just there. I really like that. And something to think about is the consistency of your interactions and sound and visual. I know that you had music over it, but are there any audio visual feedback cues to let people know when they've successfully done something? Sound effects, anything like that? and then try to make those consistent. So whenever you're grabbing something, there's always a consistent interaction for that versus using the laser pointer. Think about consistency and feedback on that. And I do like your plans for the future of what you're wanting to do for corporate stores and so forth. I think you've got some good work here. That's all I can think about.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Congrats, Lena.
Thanks,
Thanks,
you.
Lisa. Wonderful. So I will see if I can. So apologies, Lena, for that a little bit of lag. But it'd be great if you do upload your video to, say, YouTube. Definitely share with us, and I can share with our community later so they can take a look and try it out. So what I will do is for our next video, I will try to add it here so it can start to load while the presentation is going on. So next we have Abe Trevino, Alpha Horizon, an overview of my process designing a UI concept that utilizes a radial menu for a sci-fi exploration game. So we'll get Abe up on here. Hello, Abe. Welcome.
Hey, how's it going, Lizzie?
Good, how are you?
Good. Yeah, it's just, finally great to be able to be here and actually talk about a little bit some of the it was really my process in creating this concept. Just a little bit of my background. I am a graphic/visual designer. I have experience in user interface design, and as of recently, since joining CircuitStream, graduating, I am an aspiring VR/XR designer. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how this whole process eventually comes to fruition. But for now, it is a sci-fi exploration game that is centered around using a radial menu that generates out of the user's forearm. So to elaborate, I'll go ahead and just let the video play out a little bit here, just to kind of give you an example of the final product, or at least the current product in progress. But I think, I think it may be frozen. Yeah, well, that said, oh, hello?
Oh, hello. Tech issues. Isn't that fun? Sorry about that, Abe.
Oh, I was wondering what was going on. I was like, hey, okay, all right. Well, welcome to CircuitStream.
Thank you so much. Tell me about it all.
Yeah, well, as far as that goes, just to give you a little bit more insight about me, while that goes in processes, I'm based out of Austin, Texas. Beautiful city. Highly recommend you guys should come visit. Check out some of the tacos. They are to die for. And when I'm not working on, Unity, creating, my experiences and just working on VR, XR stuff, I'm usually working on my music. I'm a hobbyist musician. I've been working on my music for, a couple of years now, probably about 7 years.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's my passion. So I'm hoping to see if I can include that as well into this project at some point once I finish the rest of it. But
Absolutely.
But that said, I'm also a student of screenwriting, and I wanted to see if I could create a story concept that revolved around using a radial menu for the experience. So I wanted to see if I could combine my passion for storytelling and designing UIs into one specific experience, and that is Alpha Horizon.
Awesome. Shall we play the video then?
Sure, absolutely.
Great. So fingers crossed. Let's see. Hopefully I won't get booted out again.
Perfect. Cool. So, in this brief video example, what you're seeing here is the player pulling up the UI from their forearm, using that to essentially enact actions that would essentially be displayed on the UI itself. So, that said, it's a very brief video. So, as far as that goes, this was my process in designing a radio UI concept for a VR game, a sci-fi VR game. So, next slide. So, the concept was that I wanted to create this character called the Passenger. So, the Passenger is a human who has suddenly woken up from suspended animation aboard a space freighter, the HFS Alpha Horizon. So, the concept is the passenger wakes up aboard this seemingly abandoned ship, and they encounter this strange futuristic device called a gauntlet. So this gauntlet would essentially take over the place of the player's dominant hand, and this would essentially allow the player to interact with the environment using the user interface that is inherent in that gauntlet. You know, you would essentially make your way through this spaceship, trying to figure out the situations like little puzzles littered all throughout the entire spaceship in order to try and navigate your way through and escape before it finds you. So, I am wanting to go ahead. I wish I could elaborate more on that, but unfortunately the slides didn't really allow me too much on explaining the story, but that'll be for another time. For now, I wanted to go ahead and move on to the design challenge that I've set about for myself in creating this project. So, to put it simply, I wanted to create a half-moon radial menu. This radial menu would essentially go on the player's forearm, and it would allow players to basically pull up a quick menu of actions. It's kind of like the menus that you would normally find in some games where you can just pull it up real quick, you know, use an action, and then it goes back. So I wanted to essentially create that, but built into the player's interface, and kind of create this sort of diegetic interaction between the player and their environment. And so moving on from that, this was my challenge to essentially create the mechanism for which the player would actually be interacting. And so, as mentioned before, this was the gauntlet. The gauntlet would allow a player to use various abilities in the game. They would be able to shoot a water cannon, fire extinguisher, a grappling hook, electrical beam, bombs, all different kinds of sort of interactables that they would be able to use to create paths in their environment, be able to, have a sort of inventory to basically call upon. And this interface would essentially be kind of like a catch-all. It would have the game menu, it would have the inventory, it would have abilities, and on top of that, it would have more options that players would be able to put certain favorites on that interface, so that they could just call them in, boom, 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 and just be able to utilize it in a very quick manner if needed be. So that was the game mechanics that I wanted to implement into the Gauntlet for creating this project. So moving on from that, let's see. The UI mechanics. So the mechanics of the user interface. All the player would do is to just hold a single button. In this case, I wanted it to be the right grip button. This would pull up the user interface, and it would also release it upon the player releasing the right grip button. So in this instance, I wanted the player to be able to scroll left and right using the joystick, the primary joystick. And once they've made their selection, all they would have to do is just let go of the UI, and it would choose that action for them. It would instantiate it, to put it simply. So this was what I wanted to do in creating the UI. Now, moving on from that, Next slide, please. This is the conceptualization of the previous works. This is a demonstration in a program called Shapes XR. And this is kind of sort of like a brief little example of how I wanted the UI to kind of act like. So as you can see, players can press left and right to transition between the different screens. In this case, it's only the one screen for now. But possible improvements in this as I was creating it was that I think that players would also need to be able to drag left and right between the different screens using their left hand. So basically be able to kind of drag it like you would like a smartphone, as well as scrolling up and down in case there was a longer list of items in that screen. So yes, this was the original concept that I created in Shapes XR. And after that, I wanted to see if I could take this progress into Unity. So I decided to see if I could create a working prototype in there. So in the next slide, I would be focusing on some of the animation scripting. Now, unfortunately, I'm not a super great coder. I'm really more of a designer, but you know, thanks to my amazing mentor, Usman Mir, aka Ozzy. He definitely helped me out with some of the programming in this instance and kind of was able to give me some leeway into how this could work. So in Unity, all I did was I created a script that references the right grip button in the XR interaction toolkit. So with that done, I attached that script to the right hand on the XR rig. And after that, all I did was I created an array of different elements, things that the player would be able to fire from their gauntlet. Things like, as you can see here, a water bomb and an extinguisher element. The player would be able to press the right trigger button, and from there, they would be able to fire it. It's a very simple, thank you. It was a very simple mechanism that I wanted to see if I could just implement it to demonstrate what the UI's capabilities would look like. Unfortunately, it's not linked completely to the UI yet, but that is something that I'm working on in the future. So in the next slide, you'll actually be able to see it in progress or in motion. So this was the toggle that I created, the toggle animation that would essentially be able to pull up the UI around the user's forearm, aka the gauntlet. They would be able to just press right grip, pulls up, and they'd be able to access a completely super quick accessible menu with ease. This was the original intention that I went into this project wanting to create.
Brilliant.
So now we'll actually see it in the final phases of my prototyping phase, which is as seen. So the player would just have to hold the right grip button, open the UI, scroll to select. In this case, it's not shown. But once they open the UI, they would select their element and then just release the right grip button to close and instantiate that ability. So all the player has to do after that is just press the right trigger to activate it. In this case, we see that the player is activating a fire extinguisher element, not shown, to try and extinguish this fire. So this was my progress in creating a radial UI concept for virtual reality. And as far as that goes, in further phases, I do plan to make the active UI, the option that the player is selecting currently, more visible. I do want to have a focus more on iconography so that the player can just look at the panel and see, oh, this is that ability, or this is that, as well as the text below. I also want to be able to allow the use of a single-handed mode, just being able to use one hand and one joystick to scroll the UI left and right, as opposed to using the player's opposite hand in the current version for dragging, for dragging through the user interface. But But yes, this is my project. This was the project that I've been working on for the past 3 months. Currently, as you can see, a work in progress, but I do plan on having something more in detail in the coming months, most definitely. And again, I want to thank Ozzy for being an awesome mentor. Seriously,
Yay, Ozzy.
he is an awesome guy. Highly recommend him for any particular projects when it comes to scripting. It was an absolute treat to work with him. Definitely miss him. He's a great guy.
He is. And congrats to you, Abe. That's awesome. Snaps all around. I know we'll definitely want to see in the second and third and fourth phase when you have it developed. So definitely share with us. Let's get Aletha here to give you her feedback.
So, good job so far. Nice to meet you.
Hey, Lisa. Thank you.
So I think that it's a great idea to have that quick access menu. I like the concept. So you're using the most common interactions on this quick access menu, or the allowing them to do favorites. Is that right?
Well, yes. The concept would be that the player would be able to add in their favorites to this menu, so that they could just. It's kind of like a favorites menu in a way. It could act as a favorites menu. In some games. In other instances, it could also just be like a regular radio menu that revolves around the player's forearm.
Okay, so in the case of a more complex menu, I would think about Gorilla Arm in that case. So when you're working with vertical interfaces or anything where you have to hold up your arm for long periods of time, the more complex the menu, the tireder the person's going to get. And so that's going to make their head go down, and it's going to make the headset heavier and all that stuff. So think about, for the more complex menus, of a way of letting them pin it out into the world so they can touch it, and then dismiss it that's for the more complex stuff. Quick access, that's a great idea to have it on the Ghana. I like that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Think about also the non-dominant hand versus dominant hand when you're doing those menus, because if you have and it makes sense that you've got the gauntlet on the dominant hand, but if you're using the left hand, and I know that in the future you wanted to think about how to do it one-handed, but if you're, in the meantime, if you're using it left hand, you'd have to make a larger target area, or the non-dominant hand, you'd have to make a larger target area on there, because we're much less accurate with our non-dominant hand than we are with our dominant hand. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be harder. I know I am horrible with my left hand. So it takes me longer to grab things with it than I do with my right. So you would want to think about sizing, and also think about iconography. So because of internationalization, and icons mean different things in different worlds, different countries and worlds, you want to always accompany your icon with a label, even if
exactly.
it's a common. Yeah.
I think I left out when I meant to say like text. I meant to say like a label.
Yeah, I'm figuring that I'm probably preaching to the choir, since you do come from an interaction design background. But I'm not sure, so I'm just saying. But some things to try out, some other apps to try out for inspiration, I would say, would be Adobe Medium. I know they were bought by Oculus, originally made Medium. It's this 3D modeling app. And then Adobe bought them, so I'm not sure how or if Adobe has made any changes to how you interact with things in there. But when it was Oculus, they had menus and tools that came up on your controller single-handed, and you could use your joystick to move things.
Exactly.
So you can try that to see what you like and don't like about that, and also try House Flipper and Rec Room to see if there are any inspirations that you can get from that for how to pop out menus when it's a more complex thing that you need to do.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Thank you, Aletha.
Yeah, you did a good job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Abe. Congrats. Definitely keep us posted on next versions.
Most definitely. Thanks, guys.
Alrighty. So next we have, oh, there you go. Thank you, Paige. So if you want to contact Abe, there's his contact info. So now we have Iverson Chan, Stargazer, observe objects in space. Iverson, did I say your last name right? Did I
Yes,
pass the
that's
second
correct.
test? Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
Woo. Awesome. All right, so do you want to give tell people who you are?
Yeah, sure. So hi everyone. I'm Iverson. I'm a product designer at a enterprise tech company. But before that, I used to be a 3D animator and visual effects artist at some point in time before I transitioned to motion design and then into product design. But yeah, so I guess let's dive in. So the project that I have here today is called Stargazer. It's a VR app for looking at the stars, looking at the sky. And basically, I wanted to create this really casual, relaxing app that allows the viewer to kind of observe the dark sky without the effects of light pollution. And so you can see here on the right, this little map of how the US and Canada is affected by light pollution. I live in the big city close to SF, so it's nearly impossible for me to observe the skies from my own balcony. And not to mention, I'm actually a astrophotography hobbyist, so I do like to take pictures from my balcony pretty often. And so, being able to see the stars to kind of guide you where I should look at is really important. So, I'll talk about that a little more in the demo, but yeah. And this is just a quick, screenshot that I grabbed from darksky.org, where it kind of shows you the impact of light pollution. So before is kind of like a day-to-day what the sky looks like from the city, and then on the right, the person who took that picture was saying that the entire power system across the entire city went out for the night, so he was able to see the Milky Way from his backyard. So it makes a really big difference when your light pollution is in your atmosphere.
Wow, absolutely.
And then for inspiration, on the left is a screenshot from an app called Stellarium that I use pretty often. It's like you can use it in desktop, you can use it in mobile, but it's great for planning, what objects you want to see in the sky that night. The mobile app is great because it has GPS tracking and it has your world rotation and all that in mind. So you could point it at the sky and it'll tell you this is the general direction you're looking at. This is the objects within that screen area, which is pretty awesome. So I got a lot of inspirations from that app. And then on the right is just, personal experience shooting stars for some time. That's a video that I took of the Milky Way. It's a little dark, but it's there. So,
That's
yeah.
beautiful.
And then I guess before the demo, I started with a lot of brainstorming. So I was kind of thinking about the interactions that I want to bring into there. I didn't want to be too complex because I was designing it for my Oculus Go at the time. So there's only one control. You weren't able to move around in 3D space. So you're kind of limited to a single location, right? And I think that was fine because, it kind of goes along with the relaxed casual app, right? So things I wanted to test out, was creating an environment to ground the user. I wanted simple things like just point and hover over a deep sky object and then being able to zoom into it. And the initial idea was to have some sort of binocular or kind of like a scope fall into your view. So you would have that seamless transition from a wide angle to a close-up of the planet or deep sky object, right? And then you could use your I think the Oculus Go has a little trackpad. You could use that to zoom in further or zoom out a little bit. So yeah, and then the last interaction that I wanted to build was a filter because there's a lot of objects in the sky. It gets pretty messy if you have every single thing displayed at the same time. So being able to filter out, I want to see just planets, or I want to see just nebulas, or I want to see just galaxies. Yeah, I wanted to add that into the game as well, or the experience as well. So yeah, with that, let's jump into the demo. It's 4 minutes long, so yeah. Okay, hi everyone. My name is Iverson. So I've created a prototype VR app here called Stargazer. It's a pretty simple app, not a lot of interactions or a lot of functionality. The idea of this app is to allow the user to observe the night sky without the effects of light pollution, meaning you can see the full night sky from wherever you are, like in the city, suburbs, or wherever. Nowadays, it's pretty hard to appreciate dark sky. Like for myself, I live in a city where it's nearly impossible to see any of the stars besides some of the brightest ones. So simply, this app just allows you to observe whatever you want in the sky. It also happens to be a personal project where I can kind of collect all my astrophotography shots, kind of like a stamp collection of the sky, and add it here. And then before I jump in, unfortunately, the project didn't go quite the way I'd like it to go. I ran into a lot of technical issues. For one, I designed this specifically for my Oculus Go, and that Oculus Go broke with about 3 weeks left into the design course. So, and on top of that, Oculus Go's end of life was sometime last year, so there's not a lot of, there's no support for it anymore, and there's no documentation for it either. So that's kind of unfortunate. So I didn't get a chance to play test this in a VR environment. So I'll be navigating this app with my mouse. So let's dive in. So I've grounded my player here on this open field. I kind of wanted it to be peaceful, kind of like you're out camping or so. So here's a campfire, there's a tent right there. And then right above you is the Milky Way. So you can see that, it's pretty neat. You can also see some of the planets and deep sky objects in the sky. They're labeled there. And at the moment, there's only one interaction you can do. You can zoom in to view the planets or the objects. The initial idea that I had was to create some sort of effect where I'm putting on binoculars to my face and viewing the deep sky object in a magnified view. And so there would be some sort of smooth transition where the binoculars is coming into your view and changing what you see. But I haven't quite gotten there just yet. So there's actually a sharp cut between the wide angle and the close up. So you can see the planet Neptune. You'll see it's labeled here at the bottom too in this fake binocular view with this black border. These are all the locations of planets in the sky as of August 6th, which is when I added all of these. So let's take a look at some of these. You can see Jupiter. You can see Saturn. You can see Pluto. And then what else? You can see the Rho Ophiuchi, which is a shot that I took a while back. And yeah, you'll notice it looks pretty out of place. But it is what it is. There aren't any 3D objects of these objects available online, and it would be quite a hassle to create. I think the next thing I'm going to try doing is blending it into the background a little more, which I haven't got to just yet. So that's something to work on. Let's see, there's the moon. So here's a rotating moon. Here is a Solar Nebula. There's another shot that I took. And then finally, there's one last one here called the Cygnus Loop. But yeah, anyhow, you can see where this is going. It's pretty simple sit back and relax app where you can observe the sky, check out the planets, the nebulas, the galaxies, and whatnot. The interactions need a lot of work, but hopefully I'll get there soon. And so yeah, next steps, I want to make sure that binocular transition works. Another thing I wanted to do was add filters right here. So essentially, you would be able to filter out what's available in the sky. So for example, if you want to see planets only, there might be a button here that says planets, or a button for nebulas. And so that would adjust what you see here. But yeah, so with that, thanks for watching. All right, cool. Well, I think unfortunately there was a lot of lag, so you weren't able to see a lot of the actual planets and deep sky objects. So I think in the future I'll upload this video to YouTube.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. It was freezing on my end, but I wasn't sure if it was freezing for everybody else as well. Did
Yeah.
that happen?
Yeah, so I think we only got to see the Neptune one. We didn't get to see all the other ones. But I do in the video go through like Jupiter and all that. And I also show some of the shots that I took myself of like the Rho-Fici and whatnot. So they're pretty cool. But I guess I'll just speak to it here since you can't see it here.
Yeah, sorry
Essentially,
about that. I was
yeah, no worries. Essentially, you'll see like if you hover any of the planets, you'll see the white ring to indicate it's there. I have a giant collider box in that general area so that when you hover over it, and if you're off by a little bit, it's fine because all of that will work. And then so if you tap into it, it'll transition you into the binocular view. And then you can kind of move around while you're still there. And then, later on, if you can see the astrophotography shots in the view, they're kind of out of place because the background that I took versus the actual 3D sphere that I've implemented in the design, they don't really quite match. So it's a sharp, like, you see this giant square where the shot was. So I think one thing I want to try is blending that into the background a little more to make it look a little bit more immersive and not so out of place, right? But yeah, so I guess speaking about challenges, you heard about my Oculus Go. It did break, so I didn't get a chance to use it or play test it, which is pretty unfortunate. And then in the future, if I get a chance to upgrade this app into like a Quest or so, I'll definitely do that. And then, like I mentioned, it's really hard to find 3D objects of, like planets or galaxies or stuff like that. And to build that myself is a really big hassle with all the particles and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then not to mention, the sky texture is also really massive. So it was really hard to load a lot of the details of the stars and all that. And then finally, I didn't mention it here, being able to make sure that it keeps that real-time location and position of all the planets and objects in the sky. So being able to make sure that they rotate in the right direction 365 days a year and whatnot. So that's kind of like the next step that I want to take a look at.
Nice, brilliant. And if you do transfer the video to YouTube, share with us so we can share it with everybody else in our Slack community.
Yeah, of course.
Brilliant. So Andy said, would we need to eventually have the ability to track the current relative positions of all the bodies in the sky? That's pretty cool. And then Indica said, with the Quest, you can also add a virtual telescope. So that would be awesome.
Oh yeah, that would be awesome.
All right, so Aletha, on to you.
Hi, Addison. Nice to meet you.
Aletha, nice to meet you.
I really like your concept, and I understand the pain of technology failing you when you need it the most. That is very, very stressful. So I feel your pain.
Yeah.
So was this designed with 360 DOF in mind, or are you wanting, because you said you wanted to do Quest in the future, right?
So it was initially designed for the Oculus Go because that's what I had at the time. And I wanted to be able to play test it specifically. So I wasn't designing it with Oculus Quest in mind originally.
Yeah, I do like the idea though of having it available on 360 for 3DOF and even for cardboard for people who can't afford headsets. They'd still be able to have that experience. As like we saw in the COVID shutdowns, that there are a lot of people who can't not afford that tech, but they could afford possibly a cardboard.
Right.
So letting them experience that would be pretty nice. So I know that since you weren't able to finish it, there's not a lot I can say, but think about when you're doing the zoom in, you were talking about zooming in for close-up shots. Think about mitigations for motion sickness. How would you prevent that? And also, if you probably checked them out already, but there are some 2D AR apps that you could check out, Night Sky, Star Walk, to get inspiration from them on how they see detail of this when you click on something to get more info. Because they'll also, instead of zooming in, they'll pull out a 3D object, and like the constellations artwork will come out in 3D closer to you instead of you zooming into the star. There are multiple options. You might get some inspiration from that to help you figure out what you're wanting to do with yours. And then also, if you want to continue testing while you're waiting for another headset, did you get another one?
Not yet, no.
Okay,
It's a
so
plan though.
if you're wanting to continue working on it until then, you could. One option, of course, is to try for cardboard. Try designing something for cardboard and test out in there with your gaze targeting as an option. Or you could also get out of Unity and practice the design process in Adobe XD with Draft XR if you have that software, or even using WebVR with A-Frame or something like that to try to get something in a cardboard headset so you can keep testing until you do get a headset. Because actually that's how I started learning.
Oh,
Was
nice.
I didn't want to pay for something if I wasn't convinced yet that I wanted to be part of it. So and at the time everything was really expensive. It's more expensive than now. So instead of having to buy all of that equipment, I just went for cardboard because I already had a phone, I already had a Mac, and so I just went that route to begin with. So you could try that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and I think it's awesome because for astronomy in general, right? You could view the sky from whatever angle and from whatever view you want. Even if you're going wide, that's totally fine. So with a cardboard, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, good job. I like the idea. I hope to see more of that in the future.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Alisa.
Yeah, me too, Iverson, and definitely great that you integrated your shots there. Definitely really cool to see more of that.
Mhm.
Congrats.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. All right, so, and that's great. Special thanks to Iverson's mentor, Ashley Guttel. So there you go. Thanks, Ashley. All right, last but definitely not least, we have Ralph Roma, Space Deck, A Place in Space to experiment different interactions. Hey, Ralph.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. Hey everybody, I'm Ralph Roma. I'm primarily a 3D artist and now transitioned in XR design, and I'm based in New York City. Thank you, Andy. NYC represent. And with my experience as a 3D artist, I've worked on AR, VR experiences, and working alongside with XR designers, working alongside with engineers, working alongside with UX researchers and designers. A lot of it kind of rubbed into me that this is the transition that I really wanted to do. And eventually I saw Circuit Stream, met Steph, and I was able to take the XR design course. And I want to give a shout out to Indica, my one-on-one instructor, and Tyrell being the instructor as well. So I was wondering if we can move on to the next slide.
Yes.
Cool. So with Space Deck, few things here. I used Maya and Pro Builder for modeling. I used Substance Painter for textures, and I have a trick a little later on what I did with Substance Painter, and of course Unity. So for Space Deck, I want to keep it grounded as a 3D artist, still transitioning and still learning as an XR designer, and having a polished environment for me really helped me stay disciplined in maintaining the scene. So if anybody is wondering what is Space Deck, it's not a VR game or a VR experience. It's literally a deck where I can test different interactions, different experiments that I've learned throughout. So instead of having a blank Unity scene, I kind of want to make a scene that looks really fun, looks really entertaining, and I can just like put things in there, and I can just do some interactions. And with Indica, he really helped me a lot. And next slide, please. So key interaction here is the Tesla coil. So of course, the Tesla coil, when your controllers gets near the Tesla coil, it would emit electricity and it would pretty much go wherever your hand is. And I use bolt scripting from that. So for the first image of the bolt scripting, it's pretty simple. Is when your hands goes close to the colliders, then it will trigger the lightning effect. The second image is if you pull your hands, it will pretty much stop it. And the third one is actually the trickiest one because we had a problem wherein when my hands were in place and it's closed, but if you take only one hand out, it all stops. So the third one is pretty much an update method wherein if I take one hand out, it will still play the music, it will still emit electricity, and if I put it back the other hand in, it will still do it, and vice versa. So which is really important.
Awesome.
So next slide is, so I'm talking about the challenges right now. Unfortunately, being in the class with Tyrell, having Indica as an my one-on-ones, and of course, office hours and YouTube as well, I was able to really dig into a lot of things that can help me with the interaction. But the main problem that I've always had is always with lighting, because a lot of things can work around Unity wherein you change really small parameters, it will be really drastic. So when I was baking lights, it was really hard because I wasn't really getting the results that I want because I'm texturing in Substance Painter. And with this slide right here, this is Substance Painter. What I was able to figure out and was really helpful for me was there's a filter here in Substance Painter where you can actually bake lighting attached to a colored texture already. So you don't have to do a lot of that in Unity. So if we can, Lucy, if you mind, if we can move back and forth between the two slides. There you go. So yeah, keep doing that, Lucy. I'm sorry. So if you can see, there's, I don't know if you see it clearly, but you can see a change with the lighting and the shadows over here. And it really helps a lot with the stress of like adding ambient occlusion in your lighting setup in Unity. And if you guys want, I'll be more than happy to run this with you guys who wants to look into your textures and lighting. So thanks so much, Lucy.
Did I do the back and forth well?
Yep, perfect. So yeah, and on the next slide. Oh, yeah, thank you. And we can go to the video.
Perfect.
So here's the start of it. You can see the shadows, lighting, and everything. And if you guys can hear me, there's not a lot of lightings here, a lot of lighting setup. A lot of it has been done in Substance Painter. I have an animation timeline of the rocks moving. That button was done in Pro Builder, so is the lever. A lot of the primitive shapes was done in Pro Builder. I think it's lagging with the sound. It's all right though. And then for the Tesla coil, sorry about that, it's lagging. There you go.
Let me bring it back a bit.
Yeah. I think the lag is not making it sync with the sound, but it's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
That is awesome. I definitely want to play in that space deck. That's so cool. Congrats, Ralph.
Thank you.
Amazing. Amazing. Oh, you snapped with me. Yay. Okay, so let's, seems like we don't have any questions from the audience. Let's get Aletha here.
Hi, Ralph. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Aletha. Hello.
That's a very nice environmental design. You did a good job on that.
Thank you.
I really like that you're able to just touch things with the controller. You don't have to mess with buttons or anything.
Definitely.
People don't have to learn buttons. You just tap it. It reminds me of Richie's Plank experience.
Yeah.
If you've ever messed with that one.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. So that's cool because you don't really have to teach them anything. So one of my first questions was, how do you interact for the teleportation?
For a teleportation, pretty much you just point and then use this button right here to just teleport around.
Okay. Are there any plans on how to teach people how to do that? Because that's one thing they are going to have to learn.
Oh, definitely. That's one of the things that I'm looking more into with the teleportation. I think I just got really grounded since the environment is pretty small by itself. That teleportation wasn't really as intuitive as I wanted it to be. But eventually, since the since the environment that I have is pretty modular, that I wasn't able to actually show with my process, I can actually just duplicate each environment, stack on top of each other. And I think that's the time that if it actually gets bigger, I can definitely look more into teleportation.
Yeah. One thing to think about is, and I'm going to always be testing. That's our quote for the day. Always be testing with
Yes.
people. But think about controller button consistency. So when you're learning interactions for other things that use the Quest Touch controllers, what is the standard interaction for teleportation? Because you want to be consistent and think about that so that when people are coming into your experience, they don't have to learn a new way of doing the same thing. So grip buttons are generally for grabbing, and thumbsticks, from what I'm seeing, are generally for teleportation
Gotcha.
with the Bezier. So you want to, there aren't any standards right now, which is part of the problem, but try to think of how they're using across other apps so that you can try to make some kind of consistency. And I do like the positive feedback with your audio. I saw the video
Gotcha.
synced, and
Okay.
I heard the sound effects and everything, and so I like that. That's good. I like that you have. Do you have any ambiance or environmental audio going on yet?
Yes. I think for the entire video, I do have a looping spaceship ambient sound.
Okay.
So that's what I do have. It's really subtle, which I really like. Actually, it's not something that's really distracting.
It's like a shh.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so is this the point of this to be like discovery? So exploring the space and discovering new things to interact with.
Yeah.
the-
Well, the trajectory that I was primarily going for is I just told Indica that, hey, for my project, I just want a space that looks good, that I can just test all kinds of interactions there. And it's not really going to be a game and such, but now moving forward, I do want to implement something like what you just said, and maybe even implement a little bit of storytelling as well, since I do have a theme kind of set up.
Yeah, so I would say try BOGO VR on the Quest. You've got the Quest.
Gotcha.
So it's a kind of discovery game. So you just in this environment and you're discovering new interactions, and they're slowly introduced to you over time. It's very short.
Gotcha.
So it won't take you long to get through it. But and when they're introducing something new for you to play with, they'll make it glow. And so that'll grab your attention and get you to go over there to that glowing thing and say, okay, now I need to figure out how to do this thing.
Gotcha.
So you might get some really good inspiration from that.
Appreciate it. We'll definitely check it out.
Yeah, that's a good job. I like it.
Congrats, Ralph. Thank you. And thanks again to Aletha. All right, so I do apologize. We are a little bit going over time, of course, because, could I have expected anything different? Because I like to talk, and there's just so much good content, so much, so many great things I'm going to show from the students. But no biggie, I'm just going to do a quick wrap up, and then I'm going to invite you all to join us in AltSpace VR. But first of all, I would like to invite you all to give a huge round of applause to all our presenters as well as our special guests. Let me just quickly, I can quickly get them up on here so we can do a big round of applause. Congrats, everyone. That was amazing. Yay. The Simpsons are congratulating all of you. All right, so next we have a really quick prize draw. So something that we do is we'll get all of the students that submitted feedback surveys throughout the course, and the more feedback surveys they submit, the more entries they get into the draw, so the better chances of getting the prize. So just a nice way of encouraging our students to always give us feedback so that we know how we're doing. So I'm gonna pull up the list here. I think if I bring it here, everybody will be able to see. So we have the list, and then we'll just go to random number generator, if I'm not mistaken. I believe we have, yes, 69 students. Ready, set, go. 35, who's the lucky winner? Josh. Oh, great, Joshua Magno. So Joshua won a 101 session with one of our experts for 90 minutes. So congrats, Joshua. I don't think he's here, but I think he'll be excited when he finds out. So that's it for our prize draw. For all of you who are out there, if you're interested in the work that our students did and you'd like to try this out yourself and learn how they did it, we have a next cohort coming up for our design course on November 8th. So as I mentioned earlier, we get to design experiences for AR and VR, the techniques to create XR prototypes, how to create immersive storytelling and visual effects in XR. You get 3 hours of live instruction per week, as well as office hours that are accessible to both current students and alums. So all the students here today, even though they finished the course, they can continue to attend our office hours. The course is flexible part-time, and you have lifetime access to the recordings after the live session is over. You get industry recognized certifications, and you can add on a weekly one-on-one support with one of our experts to work on a personal project, which is how our students develop their personal projects here today. If you're eligible and you complete the course requirements, you'll get our XR designer certification, and you could also, if you'd like, take the exam to get the certified professional artist certification from Unity. If you're interested in all of that and would like to take a closer look, you just go to our website, circuitstream.com/learning, to download the syllabus or apply. And that's it. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for coming. I do apologize about the tech issues. I don't think it's our streaming platform. I think it might be something on my computer, so I will definitely check that out before our next demo day, which is next week. Next week, we have our XR Development with Unity graduates, so definitely come check it out. We are going to be showing the videos from our students today on Slack if you want to see them not lagging, which is definitely preferable. And definitely join us on Slack. I'm going to just share the link here to our Slack if you'd like to come and see and check it out. I'd love to see you there. And then in terms of AltSpace VR instructions, give me one quick sec. So all of our students, if you'd like to head on over to the AltSpace VR, feel free to do so, and we can meet you there. Otherwise, for everyone else here, you can join us with these instructions. So basically, just download AltSpace VR, you create an account, create your own avatar, and then you can enter the room via the code below, which is BYP577. So I hope to see you there. Thank you again for coming, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Bye.